I paid off my parents' debt and bought them a new car, but they agreed when my cousin called me too poor, so I took everything back. My folks found the idea of affording it agreeable, so I decided to reclaim everything. I am 28, and my role, as a maintenance supervisor at an apartment complex, provides a fair income. I have diligently saved for years, aiming to do something meaningful for my parents. They have faced financial hardship since my father's factory layoff 2 years prior, and my mother's part-time retail earnings barely cover groceries. They were behind on their mortgage, accumulated credit card debt, and their car produced a terrible grinding noise. Furthermore, their air conditioning ceased functioning last summer, and they could not afford repairs. Witnessing their stress over money for months was painful, as they are hard-working, good people who raised me well. I often recalled their sacrifices during my upbringing. My mother would pack meager lunches for work to ensure more food for my sister and me, and my father drove the same worn-out truck for 15 years, claiming new cars were for the affluent. They never explicitly asked for assistance, but the deepening worry lines on their faces were evident during my visits. My mother began purchasing generic brands for everything at the grocery store, even the rough toilet paper. Therefore, I resolved to genuinely surprise them, not merely by settling a single bill, but by fundamentally transforming their circumstances. I wanted them to regain a sense of security, free from the dilemma of choosing between the electric bill and medication. I had been saving for a down payment on my own home, but I realized my needs could wait, as my parents required immediate help. What value is a house when those who raised me are burdened by debt and drive a car that might break down at any moment? I spent weeks meticulously planning. First, I contacted their mortgage company and paid off the remaining balance, approximately $47,000. Then, I reached out to all their credit card companies, settling every debt, totaling another $23,000. Subsequently, I visited the Honda dealership and purchased a brand new 2024 CR-V in silver, my mother's preferred color, fully equipped with heated seats and a backup camera. They never imagined they could afford such a vehicle. The plan was to surprise them on Sunday when they returned from church, as the entire family typically gathered at their house for dinner then. I wanted everyone present to witness their reaction upon realizing their financial burdens were lifted and a beautiful new car awaited them. I had been incredibly excited for weeks, barely sleeping the night before, envisioning their joy, my mother's happy tears, and my father's attempts to conceal his emotions. I arrived at their house early, parking the new CR-V in the driveway adorned with a large red bow. I then waited inside with my sister Sarah, who was the only one aware of the surprise, as I needed assistance coordinating everything. When my parents arrived in their old Honda and saw the new car, my mother shrieked and my father stood speechless. For about 10 minutes, everything was perfect. My mother ran her hands over the paint and examined the interior, while my father explored its features. They repeatedly inquired whose car it was, and if someone was visiting. Finally, I revealed it was theirs, and that I had also cleared their house and all their credit cards. The expressions on their faces were precisely what I had hoped for. My mother began crying and embracing me, and my father became emotional, repeatedly stating his disbelief. However, then my cousin Derek arrived, and that's when everything went awry. Derek is one of those individuals who consistently monopolizes attention and resents others receiving it. Derek works in tech, earning around $150,000 annually, and never fails to remind everyone, constantly discussing his stock options, his loft, and flaunting his Tesla. He has been the family's golden child since graduating college. Derek observed the car and immediately began questioning its cost and how I, with my salary, could afford it. I should have recognized the warning signs then, as his tone suggested he was already preparing to undermine me. I attempted to dismiss it, explaining I had saved up and wanted to do something kind for my parents. But Derek persisted, pressing for exact figures. My parents were still emotional and appreciative at this point, and my father informed Derek about me paying off the house as well. Derek's expression completely altered, as if a switch had been flipped. He started lecturing about the financial impracticality and how I was likely putting myself in a precarious situation. He said all this in front of everyone, as if he were a financial advisor, rather than simply being happy for my parents. Then my Aunt Linda, Derek's mother, and my father's sister appeared. Derek immediately informed her of my actions, framing it as a reckless decision rather than a generous one. Aunt Linda had always been inexplicably envious of my parents. So now, Derek and Aunt Linda were whispering in a corner while my parents still admired the car. I could sense something brewing, as Derek frequently glanced at me with a smug expression. My sister Sarah tried to change the subject and direct everyone's attention to dinner. But the tension in the air was palpable, like an approaching storm. That's when Derek decided to truly expose himself. loudly declaring for everyone to hear that it was amusing how I was attempting to be the big shot when I probably earned less in a year than he did in 3 months. Just like that, out of nowhere, he attacked my job and my income after I had just performed an incredibly generous act for my parents. I told Derek that this was not about money or showing off, but about helping family. However, he was not finished, as he had apparently been, awaiting an opportunity to put me in my place. He proceeded to elaborate on how I was a maintenance worker, and he was in tech, and how I likely did not comprehend the tax implications of my actions. He asserted that I should have consulted with someone knowledgeable about finances before making such a significant financial decision. My mother attempted to silence Derek, but he was unstoppable, suggesting that perhaps instead of buying cars I could not afford, I should focus on pursuing a real career, as he had done. That's when I completely lost my composure, because this man had never performed a day of manual labor in his life, and did not understand what real work entailed. I told Derek that at least I did not spend my time disparaging family members who were trying to help, and that some of us measured success by more than just our bank accounts. But Derek merely laughed, stating that was what people said when they lacked money. Aunt Linda interjected, claiming Derek was merely being practical and looking out for everyone's best interests, which was entirely false, as Derek had never looked out for anyone but himself. Then my father, who I believed would defend me, or at least tell Derek to desist, stated that Derek had a point about being prudent with money, and perhaps I should have discussed it with them before making such a large decision. I could not believe what I was hearing. Here I was, having just paid off their house and bought them a car, and my own father was siding with Derek over me. My mother added that she was grateful, but concerned about my ability to truly afford all this, and she looked at me with a worried expression, as if I were a child incapable of managing money. The entire conversation had shifted from my generous gift to my supposed poor financial judgment, and I stood there feeling under attack from all directions. Derek then uttered, and I'll never forget this because it was so cruel that it's sweet that I wanted to help, but maybe next time I should stick to gifts that are more appropriate for my income level, like a nice dinner or something. That's when my mother said, and this is what truly devastated me, that she appreciated my actions but wished I possessed Derek's acumen for career, because then I would have discovered a smarter way to help them that would not have put me at risk. She was comparing me to Derek directly, after I had just given them everything I had saved for my own future, and she was acting as though Derek would have handled it better. I stood there for a minute, simply processing what had transpired. In the span of 20 minutes, I had transformed from the generous son who resolved all their problems to the irresponsible one who required Derek's approval for my financial decisions. My sister Sarah looked at me with a horrified expression, as she could clearly see what was unfolding, but everyone else was acting as though Derek's concerns were entirely reasonable. I finally stated that I could not believe they were transforming my gift into a criticism of my life choices, and that if they considered Derek so much more financially astute, perhaps he should be the one assisting them instead of me. My father claimed I was being overly sensitive, and that they were merely attempting to ensure I did not financially harm myself. My mother asserted she never said anything was wrong with my job, but then added that she simply worried about my future and whether I would be able to build the kind of life Derek possessed. And there it was again, the comparison to my cousin, who earned more money and therefore must be superior to me somehow. Derek simply stood there with a satisfied smile on his face, having successfully transformed my moment into his moment, where everyone was discussing how much smarter and more successful he was compared to me. Aunt Linda nodded in agreement, expressing her pride in Derek. I informed them all that I was finished with this conversation, and that if they believed Derek was so much better at handling money, they could give him the car keys and see how generous he felt like being. My father said I was being ridiculous, and that was not what anyone meant. But I was already heading toward the door because I felt myself about to completely explode, and I did not want to utter anything I could not retract. My mother followed me, claiming I was overreacting and that everyone was simply concerned about me. But I told her that if she were truly concerned about me, she would not have spent the last hour making me feel like an idiot for attempting to help. She claimed that was unfair and they were grateful for my actions. But then she inquired if I could truly afford it and if I had sufficient money remaining for emergencies. I simply looked at her and stated that it was too late to worry about that now, since the money was already spent, and perhaps next time she should consider defending her son instead of questioning his judgment in front of people who enjoyed disparaging him. She began to say something else, but I was already in my truck, driving away, and I was so enraged I had to pull over after a few blocks because my hands were trembling. I spent the next few days contemplating what had occurred, growing more furious each time I replayed it in my mind. The more I considered it, the more I realized that Derek had orchestrated this entire scenario. He seized an opportunity to make me appear bad and took it, and my parents simply went along with it, instead of telling him to be quiet and be grateful that someone had helped them. The truly disturbing part was that Derek had never once offered to help my parents with their financial difficulties. Now, I never expected him to, since he is just my cousin. But helping family is a good thing to do. So I decided I was not going to let this go. I contacted the Honda dealership and informed them I wished to return the car. They stated I had 3 days remaining on their satisfaction guarantee and could return it for a full refund, provided it had less than 200 miles on it. I also contacted my bank and had them reverse the payments to the mortgage company and the credit card companies, which was complicated but achievable since everything had just been processed and had not yet completed all the final clearances. It incurred some fees, but I did not care, as I was not about to let my money pay for a house and car that my parents would enjoy while believing Derek was superior to me. I drove to my parents' house on Wednesday morning, knowing they would both be home, and I informed them I was taking the car back and reversing all the payments. My mother immediately began crying and asking why I would do that, and my father grew angry and demanded to know what was wrong with me. I told them exactly what was wrong, that I had spent my life savings attempting to help them, and instead of being grateful, they had spent the entire time making me feel as though I was too foolish and poor to make sound decisions. I said that, if Derek was so much smarter about money, they could ask him to pay off their debts and buy them a car, and let's see how that worked out for them. My father claimed I was being childish and that I had misunderstood what had happened, but I told him there was no misunderstanding. I heard exactly what he said about Derek having a point, and I heard my mother say she wished I possessed Derek's career aptitude. I stated that when someone gives you a gift worth $70,000, you say thank you, not mock them instead. They both began begging me not to reclaim everything, and my father said they would speak to Derek about what he had said. But I told them the damage was already done and I was not interested in forced apologies or attempting to make Derek behave better. I said that Derek had shown his true colors, and they had shown theirs by agreeing with him instead of defending me. I told them they had until Friday to make other arrangements, because that's when I was picking up the CRV to return it to the dealership. My mother was sobbing uncontrollably at this point, and my father was yelling about how I was punishing them for something Derek did. But I told them Derek did not make them compare me to him or question my financial judgment. They chose to do that themselves. The bank reversals took longer than I expected because, apparently, when you pay off someone's mortgage, there are all these legal processes that must be undone, and the credit card companies were confused about why I wanted to reverse payments that had already been applied to the accounts. I had to fill out a lot of paperwork and pay some penalty fees, but by Friday, everything was back to how it was before, except now my parents knew exactly how I felt about their reaction to my gift. I went back to retrieve the car, and my parents were both there waiting for me. My father tried one more time to dissuade me. He said they had learned their lesson and they would never allow Derek to disrespect me again. And my mother said she was sorry for making me feel unappreciated. But I could tell they still did not truly grasp it, because my father kept talking about Derek as though the problem was simply that Derek was rude, not that they agreed with him. I told them that the problem was not Derek being rude. The problem was that after I gave them everything I had saved for my own future, their first instinct was to worry that I was not smart enough to make that decision. I said that Derek did not put those words in their mouths. He just gave them permission to say what they were already thinking. My mother tried to argue that they were just concerned about me, but I asked her why she was more concerned about my financial situation after I helped them than she was before, when they were the ones drowning in debt. I asked if Derek had not been there, would they have spent the entire time questioning my judgment and comparing me to my cousin, or would they have simply been grateful? Neither of them could answer that question, which told me everything I needed to know about whether they truly appreciated what I had tried to do for them. I took the car and drove it directly to the dealership. The entire way there, I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief, as if I was disappointed but also glad that I had discovered how they truly felt about me, before I wasted any more money trying to help them. The dealership was quite accommodating with the return process, and I recovered most of my money, minus some fees, the cost of the bow, and a few other items. The mortgage and credit card reversals proceeded without any major issues, although I did have to pay some processing fees and interest charges that had accumulated by the time everything was settled. My parents were back to precisely where they began financially, except now they knew that I had the money to help them, but chose not to, because of how they had treated me. I thought that would be the end of it, but apparently word had spread throughout the family about what had happened, and now everyone had opinions about my decision. Derek called me and had the audacity to say that I had overreacted and that he was just trying to look out for my best interests, as if I was supposed to believe that his little speech about income levels and appropriate gifts was motivated by concern for me. I told Derek that if he was so concerned about family finances, he could start writing checks himself instead of critiquing other people's generosity. Aunt Linda has been calling my parents and telling them that I am being cruel and vindictive and that families should forgive each other's mistakes. She has also been telling people that I am envious of Derek's success, and that is why I grew so angry about his helpful advice, which is complete nonsense because I was angry about being disrespected, not about Derek earning more money than me. My sister Sarah is the only one who completely understands why I did what I did, because she was there and witnessed how quickly everyone turned on me after Derek started running his mouth. She said it was painful to watch because I was so excited about surprising our parents, and then Derek simply destroyed the entire moment with his jealousy and need to be the center of attention. My parents want to have a family meeting to discuss everything and attempt to resolve the situation. But I do not see the point, because nothing has truly changed. Derek still believes he is superior to me because he earns more money. My parents still think I should have consulted with someone smarter before helping them. And I still believe they are all ungrateful and disrespectful. I am not going to change my mind about the money, and they are not going to suddenly develop appreciation for what I tried to do for them. The car is returned, the debts are back on their accounts, and everyone knows where they stand with each other now. Some people might think I am being too harsh or that I should give them another chance, but I do not believe I should have to beg my own family to respect me and appreciate my generosity. If they cannot see the value in what I did without Derek's permission or commentary, then they do not deserve my help. I am back to saving money for my own house now, and I am not planning to spend it on anyone else's problems anytime soon. Let Derek help them if he is so astute about money and so concerned about family finances. I will be over here building my own life and taking care of myself, since apparently that is what I should have been doing all along. Update 1. Well, this entire situation just became even more ridiculous, and I am honestly shocked at the lengths my family is willing to go to portray me as the villain instead of simply admitting they made a mistake. So, Derek apparently decided that a simple apology was insufficient, and instead he has been circulating stories that I am experiencing some kind of mental breakdown, and that is why I overreacted to his helpful financial advice. He has been claiming that I am envious of his success, and that I made a rash, emotional decision that I will regret once I calm down and think clearly. My cousin Jennifer called me yesterday and said Derek told her that I was so desperate to compete with him that I spent money I could not afford just to show off. And when he tried to offer me some friendly guidance, I lost control, because I could not handle the truth about my financial situation. Jennifer knows Derek is full of nonsense because she has witnessed his behavior, but apparently he has been spreading this story to other family members who do not know me as well. The truly disturbing part is that Aunt Linda has been corroborating Derek's version of events, telling people that Derek was simply being responsible and looking out for me, and that I became angry because I knew he was right about me making a mistake. She has been painting Derek as the mature, successful one who tried to help his struggling cousin, and me as the unstable one who cannot handle constructive criticism. But here is where it becomes absolutely insane. My mother called me one night, crying and saying that Derek offered to help them with their financial problems, but only if they promised to persuade me to apologize to him and admit that I was wrong. Apparently, Derek's exact words were that he is willing to step up and do what needs to be done for family. But first, they need to ensure I comprehend that my behavior was unacceptable. So, Derek is literally holding my parents' financial security hostage until they compel me to grovel to him, and they are actually considering it because they are desperate and lack any other options. My mother said Derek told them he would pay off their mortgage and buy them a car, just as I was going to do, but he wants a public apology from me at the next family gathering where I admit that I was jealous and wrong. I told my mother that, if she even contemplates agreeing to Derek's conditions, she is dead to me, because that would mean she values his money more than her own son's dignity. I said that Derek is not offering to help out of generosity. He is attempting to humiliate me and make himself appear as the hero who saved the day after I failed. My mother said she does not want to hurt me, but they are genuinely struggling, and Derek's offer would resolve all their problems, and perhaps it would not be so bad to simply apologize if it means everyone can move forward. I could not believe what I was hearing, that my own mother was suggesting I should humiliate myself to satisfy Derek's ego just so she could get her bills paid. I told her that if she accepts Derek's deal, she will be proving that everything I believed about her priorities is correct, and that she cares more about money than about treating her own son with respect. She started crying harder and saying, "That is not fair, and she loves me, but she is afraid of losing the house, and does not know what else to do." That's when I realized that my parents never truly understood what I did for them or why I did it. Because if they did, they would never even consider allowing Derek to transform it into some kind of power play where I have to beg for forgiveness. They are treating my generous gift and Derek's manipulative offer as though they are the same thing, when Derek is literally attempting to buy their loyalty against me. I told my mother that she needs to choose between Derek's money and having me in her life, because I am not going to remain and watch him purchase his way into being the family golden boy while I am treated like the unstable screw-up who could not handle success. She begged me not to make her choose, but I told her that Derek already made the choice when he decided to hold her financial problems hostage until I submitted to him. My father called me the next day and tried a different approach, saying that perhaps we could work out some kind of compromise where I do not have to apologize, but I do have to acknowledge that Derek's concerns were valid. He says Derek is willing to help them regardless of what I do, but it would make things easier for everyone if I could just admit that I acted emotionally. I asked my father if he even heard himself speaking, because he was literally asking me to lie and say that Derek was right to disrespect me and tear down my gift in front of the entire family. I said that Derek's concerns were not valid, they were jealous and cruel, and the fact that my father could not discern the difference showed me everything I needed to know about whose side he was truly on. My father claims I'm being too stubborn, and that sometimes you have to swallow your pride for the good of the family. But I told him that Derek is the one who should be swallowing his pride and offering a genuine apology instead of attempting to buy his way out of the consequences of his behavior. Then my father said, and this is what truly infuriated me, that Derek has always been successful and good with money, so perhaps I should listen to his advice instead of being so defensive about my choices. There it is again, the assumption that Derek's financial success makes him right about everything and makes my decisions automatically wrong. I told my father that Derek's success does not give him the right to tear me down in front of my family, and it does not make his opinion more valuable than my own feelings about being disrespected. I said that if he thinks Derek's money makes him a better judge of character than his own son, then perhaps he deserves to be in Derek's debt instead of debt-free. Sarah called me after she heard about Derek's offer, and she is as disgusted as I am about the entire situation. She says Derek is being absolutely manipulative, and that our parents are being weak for even considering his deal. But she also understands that they are scared about their financial future, and do not see any other way out. Sarah thinks I should hold firm and not give Derek the satisfaction of getting an apology out of me, even if it means our parents remain in debt. She says that if they choose Derek's money over my dignity, that tells us everything we need to know about their values and what kind of people they truly are. But then Sarah also said something that has been bothering me, which is that she is worried this entire situation is going to permanently damage our family, and that years from now, we will all regret how things transpired. She is not saying I should apologize, but she is wondering if there is some other way to resolve this that does not end with our parents struggling financially and half the family not speaking to each other. I told Sarah that I did not create this situation. Derek did, when he decided to attack me for being generous, and our parents made it worse when they agreed with him instead of defending me. I said that if the family is damaged, it is because Derek valued his ego more than family harmony, and our parents valued his opinion more than their son's feelings. The thing that truly gets me is that Derek's offer proves everything I suspected about him, which is that he never cared about helping our parents. He just wanted to ensure everyone knew he was more successful than me. If he actually cared about family, he would have helped them years ago when they first started struggling, instead of waiting until after I tried to help them so he could use it as an opportunity to disparage me. And now, he is using their desperation to force me into a humiliating apology that he can hold over my head forever. Because if I yield to his demands, everyone will remember that Derek made me admit I was wrong and jealous and financially irresponsible. He is not trying to solve a problem. He is trying to win a competition that only existed in his head. I have been thinking about what Sarah said about permanent damage to the family. And honestly, perhaps that is exactly what needs to happen. Perhaps we need to discover once and for all who values what and who is willing to treat family members with basic respect, versus who is willing to sell that respect for the right price. If my parents accept Derek's deal, I will know that their love is conditional on me remaining in my place and never doing anything that might make Derek feel insecure about his position as the family success story. And if they do not take his deal, Derek will know that his money cannot buy him the family worship he thinks he deserves. Either way, at least everyone will know where they stand with each other, which is better than pretending we are all close while Derek gets to treat me like garbage, and my parents get to benefit from my generosity while secretly thinking Derek is better than me. I am not going to apologize to Derek, and I am not going to beg my parents to choose me over his money. I did what I thought was right when I tried to help them, and I did what I thought was right when I took that help back after they disrespected me. Now they can do what they think is right, and we will all live with the consequences. Update 2. After my last update, my parents were supposed to meet with Derek to finalize the details of his offer to help them, but Derek never showed up and has been avoiding their calls ever since. My mother called me Thursday night, crying, and saying that Derek had been texting her with excuses about being busy with work projects, but that he would get back to them soon about the payment schedule. I told my mother that Derek was obviously stalling, and that his offer was probably never real to begin with, but she did not want to hear it, because accepting that would mean admitting that she chose his fake promise over her real son. She kept saying that Derek was a good person who would not lie about something like that, and that he was probably just trying to work out the logistics of such a large financial commitment. But then Friday morning, my mother called me in a complete panic because Derek's landlord had called her looking for him. Apparently, Derek gave my parents' number as a reference when he signed his lease, and now he is 3 months behind on rent and about to be evicted. The landlord was asking if my parents knew where Derek was because he has been avoiding calls and they need to discuss payment arrangements, or else he is getting kicked out. My mother was confused because Derek had been bragging about his expensive loft for years, and she could not understand why someone who earns 6 figures would be behind on rent. I told her that perhaps Derek's financial situation was not as solid as he pretended it was, and that might explain why his offer to help them kept getting delayed with vague excuses. Then Saturday afternoon, my cousin Jennifer called me with information that completely explains everything that has been happening. Apparently, Derek tried to borrow money from her last week, claiming he had a temporary cash flow problem, but would pay her back with interest as soon as his next stock options vested. Jennifer grew suspicious because Derek has been bragging about his wealth for years, so she started asking questions about his job and his finances. It turns out that Derek was laid off from his tech company 4 months ago and has been living off credit cards and unemployment benefits ever since. But he's been too embarrassed to tell anyone in the family because his whole identity is built around being the successful one. The downtown loft he is always showing off, he cannot afford the rent and is about to be evicted. And the Tesla he loves to brag about is getting repossessed next week because he is behind on the payments. Jennifer said that when she pressed Derek about his job situation, he completely broke down and admitted that he has been lying to everyone about his financial success because he could not stand the thought of the family knowing he was struggling. He has been putting everything on credit cards to maintain his lifestyle while job hunting. But the tech market is tough right now, and he has not been able to find anything that pays what his old job did. So when Derek was giving me all that grief about my financial decisions and acting like he was so much smarter with money, he was actually drowning in debt and probably jealous as hell that I had $70,000 in savings to help our parents while he could not even pay his own rent. His entire speech about appropriate gifts for my income level was pure projection, because he was the one who could not afford to be generous, not me. He was literally playing games with my parents' financial security, just to feed his ego and make me look bad. I told Jennifer that this explained everything about Derek's behavior, because successful people do not usually spend so much time tearing down other people's generosity, unless they are insecure about their own situation. Derek was not attacking my gift because he thought it was financially irresponsible. He was attacking it because it made him look bad by comparison when he could not help our parents himself. Jennifer agreed and said that Derek had always been competitive and jealous, but losing his job had made him desperate to prove that he was still better than everyone else. She said that Derek probably saw my generous gift as a threat to his position as the family's success story, especially since I work in maintenance, and he has always looked down on blue-collar jobs. So now the truth is emerging, and my parents are beginning to realize that Derek's offer was never real, which means they sacrificed their relationship with me for absolutely nothing. My mother has been calling me non-stop since Jennifer informed her about Derek's true financial situation, begging me to forgive them and help them again. My mother keeps saying that they were manipulated by Derek, and that they are sorry for believing his lies over their own son's proven generosity. She says that Derek took advantage of their desperation and made them think his offer was legitimate when he knew he could not follow through, and that she feels terrible for choosing his fake promise over my real help. But I told my mother that Derek did not manipulate them into questioning my judgment and comparing me to him. They chose to do that themselves because they agreed with his assessment of my life and career. I said that Derek's financial problems do not excuse the fact that they listened to him disparage me and decided he was right about me being irresponsible and unsuccessful. Sarah is furious about the entire Derek situation and says that he is even worse than we thought because he was willing to give our parents false hope about their financial problems, just to satisfy his own ego. She says that Derek knew he could not help them but let them believe he could, which is cruel and manipulative on a level that goes beyond just being jealous. I am not budging on this, and I am not helping them again, because Derek being a liar does not change the fact that my parents were willing to throw me under the bus for the promise of paid bills. They showed me what their priorities are and what they truly think of me, and Derek's financial problems do not erase that or make their behavior any less hurtful.